There's that famous guitar chord. Welcome to the Beatles, the ultimate rock band. The album A Hard Day's Night was released on July 10th, 1964 on Parlophone. Producer was George Martin, the engineer was Norman Smith. Now, the focus of Hard Day's Night was the film and an album completely of original material. And this is the only Beatles album that has 100% Lennon-McCartney originals on it. No covers, nothing from anybody else. Now, there are 13 tracks to this album. So many were so good. And this album really started the whole folk rock thing of everybody buying 12-string electric guitars and doing, like the Byrds and such. I've picked 4 songs that I still think are the most rockin' songs on this album, from vocal performances to guitar solos to drum sounds and everything. Now, Abbey Road Studios at the time were now using the Telefunken M10 4-track recorders. Brand new for everybody. Now, they were using 1-inch tape here, which was twice as much what they had before. So you could split the tracks into 1/4 inch on each of the head of the recording heads. Very cool. These things were large and cumbersome, but they were known to give you a great fat sound. Now, here's a quick comparison about recording on 4-track. In the early 80s to mid-80s, I was doing demos on 4-track machines at home, wherever I was at the time. And compared to the big machines that the Beatles used, this is what I used. 4 tracks on a cassette. Technology really went crazy by that time. Now, because they had 4 tracks to work with, the typical track layout was the rhythm section was on track 1. It had more space, and you could give the bass, drums, and John's rhythm guitar a punchier, beefier sound. Now, track 2 was always George's solos, or if any piano was going on there. It was all separated just on track 2. Cool stuff. Now, track 3 were always mainly the vocals, so you could do it over and over again, and you had your separate track to get it just right. John and Paul were always on this track together. Now, track 4 was used so John could double track his voice to make it thicker and beefier. You also added cowbell and anything else that needed to be on track 4, all the miscellaneous stuff that made the song great. Now, for the first time, one other cool thing is if they ran out of space, they had another 4-track machine in there, and they could bounce down all the stuff that they did onto another machine, onto another track. They could add more if they needed it, especially the complex harmonies from John and Paul on If I Fell. For recording the vocals on this album, they're still using the Neumann U47 or 48s. They were big, warmed, detailed, and you can get some tube saturation out of them. Very cool. I'd love to see one now. They started recording the drums a little bit more at this point. They used the AKG D19C for an overhead mic to capture that crack from Ringo's snare all the time. They started miking Ringo's kick drum at this time, too, using the AKG D20. It'd give a big thumping sound, and you can hear that in there. For the guitars, they still use the Neumann U47s to mic the cabinets that they were using. It captured the chime and the air of the Vox amps that they were using. By this time, in 1964, John Lennon was playing his very famous Rickenbacker 325, the Jet Glow Black one. Very cool instrument. Someday I'll get one. There's a lot of acoustic guitar on this album, and they were using the Gibson J160E because it was one of the first acoustics that were electric as well. Now, the amps that the guitars were played through were now being played through this new Vox amp that they come up with, the Vox AC50, much louder than its predecessor. It was an amp head sitting on top of a speaker, and they had to go this way for all the live performances because nobody could hear what they were playing. Now, the secret weapon of this album and other albums was George Harrison's red Rickenbacker 360 12-string, an amazing instrument. By this time, Paul McCartney was now using a 1963 Hofner 501 nice bass guitar, I've got an Epiphone Beetle bass that sounds almost like it. Very cool stuff. Also, Ringo was now using his Ludwig Super Classic with the Oyster Black Pearl finish. That's the one we all know. For Ringo's snare, he was using a Ludwig Jazz Festival, and he had it really tight to get that crack for the rock and roll tunes they were playing these days. There were no guitar pedals yet, just fingers and tubes. And that's what kind of makes it really cool and rock and roll, is they just plug in and played. So let's start with the song Hard Day's Night. It's got that amazing chord at the very beginning that's so recognizable. Now, for you band members out there, if you're playing on a four-piece, the bass player will play a D. One rhythm guitar, make sure it's clean, is playing a D sus4. And the last chord, which just amazes me, is a G9 sus4. And if you put those three together, after counting four, it's just amazing what you'll hear. I remember the first time I tried it. I just couldn't believe it. When I ripped the tracks, you can hear a Ringo in there. You can hear a bit of George Martin playing some parts of the chord on piano. Let's hear that again. When I was ripping the tracks, I wanted to hear just what the rhythm was playing on this. The guitars, bass, and drums. It was up-tempo and a great start to the album. Let's have a listen to a little bit of that. We'll listen to Paul and Ringo's back end there of what they were doing. Just pure rock and roll, hard driven. Now, the famous guitar solo in this song is quite interesting because George and George Martin, who played the piano on it, played the exact same thing together, but the recording machine was running at half speed. So once you finish recording, you put it back to normal speed. It brings the solo up an octave, and it gives it that harpsichord kind of sound. It makes the lick sound really fast and cool. Cool pentatonic lick. I love it. Rock and roll. My next pick is the song Anytime at All. It's been one of my favorites since I was a kid. It starts with that Ringo crack on the snare that's just huge and goes into a great rhythm between Paul and Ringo for the whole song. John's vocal is frenetic and just loud, but then he goes soft. But then when it comes to the choruses again, he goes mad and rock and roll. This is great.
Anytime at all. Anytime at all. Anytime at all. All you gotta do is call, and I'll be there.
Paul plays along with George on the piano on all the main riffs of it, just to give it that bigger, fatter sound. Just a very cool rock and roll tune. Now, the next song I picked was Can't Buy Me Love. This is just pure rock and roll, from playing hard-driving seventh chords throughout the whole thing. But the cool thing about this song is it starts with the chorus. Brilliant idea. Nobody had done that before. What comes to mind is Bon Jovi's You Give Love a Bad Name. Same thing, you come rocking in with the chorus, then you do your verses. Great stuff. What's interesting is Ringo had this thud drum sound during this song. He concentrated mainly on his floor toms and his snare to give it that tribal kind of beat. I guess the engineer had tied his hi-hats together during this song so he could concentrate just on doing that. Let's have a listen. George Harrison's guitar solo on this song is kind of a jangly rockabilly nod to his early recordings that he liked and how he liked to play. This has always been one of my favorite guitar solos. One interesting note is this song was recorded outside of Abbey Road Studios. It was recorded in Paris at the Path Marconi Studios. They did some overdubbing once they got back to Abbey Road, but the bulk of it was recorded in Paris. Now, the fourth song that I've picked is You Can't Do That. I just love John Lennon's vocal on this song. It's just pure rock and roll. It's arguably the dirtiest song on the album itself. It's a pure R&B groove with a jealous, aggressive lyric. Great stuff. Let's have a listen to a little bit of that.
I got something to say that might cause you pain. If I catch you talking to that boy again, I'm gonna let you down and leave you flat. Because I told you before, oh, you can't do that.
It really contrasts sharply with the I Want to Hold Your Hand section of their career. They're starting to get a little bit dark and a little bit tough and nasty. George's contribution to this song was the jangly 360-12 Rickenbacker that he was playing. All the pentatonic licks and all the really cool licks and solo and stuff on this song just really solidified that folk rock thing that was going to happen real soon after this came out. It's just great stuff. The rock and roll energy coming from Paul and Ringo in the background of this is just amazing. And from what I understand, if you want more cowbell, Paul McCartney delivers here as he's playing the cowbell in the background, hitting it pretty hard. Love it. Well, that wraps up A Hard Day's Night and the four songs that I thought were the most rocking. Next up, episode 4, The Beatles for Sale. This is where the band starts to look a little weary, but the lyrics get a little more introspective, and they met Bob Dylan at this time. You don't want to miss this. To everyone that's been following the series so far, thank you very much. Please remember to like and subscribe. Hit that little notification so you know when the next episodes are all coming up. Thanks for watching.